And we are doing yet another FPS. This time it is called A Scarf in the Rain. I am Mike, and I'm going to be playing as Ollie.
I'm Oogie, or Oogie's Girl 207, and I'm gonna be playing Vanier.
Heck yeah. Speaking of Vanier, where is Vanier right now?
Um, I think she would probably be kind of like wandering currently in the rain. um, Lost.
Oh. Well, I can imagine it's raining pretty hard outside.
Mm,
She's definitely found herself in a forest, almost a jungle kind of situation.
yeah,
It's only been, a couple of days since she's been wandering around?
yeah.
Alright. So it's raining pretty good, and did you want to do your first perception roll?
Sure. Let me go in here. Let me see. Perception. 8, 20 plus 3. 16.
Oh my god, that's actually perfect.
What do you mean?
So, Vanir, you're wandering through these woods right now, and there is something that kind of sticks out to you amidst all the rain, all the leaves, foliage, and so on. There is a crow, and the crow is flying in pretty much the same direction as you are.
Oh. Vanir kind of notices the odd crow and kind of tilts her head slightly in confusion. As she's just continuing to walk along. She's kind of focused on the crow as she's walking now, in a sense of curiosity.
I feel like the crow is probably like swaying back and forth between like the two ways, and it kind of begins to go off a trail somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like into like a bit of an unknown territory. It feels like.
Yeah. Well, she's not familiar in the territory none the least, so.
That's true, but I would assume she was probably like on a road, like a rough road that felt pretty clear. But then it's like, oh no, never mind. You're now going directly like to the right. Ooh, into the bunch of woods, no, out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, she basically, yeah, no, I can see that happening of just her being sidetracked by the crow and just going right.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, this crow is flying pretty good. If anything, it's actually quite surprising to see a crow just out in the rain. You'd think that they would probably try to find a way to find shelter, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, this crow, it's flying pretty good, and eventually you lose sight of the crow. However, I don't think there's any rolls needed for this, but you eventually find another path. There's actually a fountain just ahead of you. If you look ahead a little more, there is a manor.
Huh. So, Vanier's gonna walk forward a bit in a cautious manner towards the manor and just kind of look about, slightly before going up to the deck and looking at the doorway for a few more seconds.
So, like, as you're walking up towards this manor, you can't help but notice that, like, clearly this building has seen better days. It's not the cleanest looking on the outside. It's been the bottom is pretty much covered in dirt and vines, which probably doesn't help regarding the rain.
Yeah.
And while the color of the mansion itself is pretty much faded, but it does have a bit of like a green, white kind of palette towards it. Yeah, very Victorian-esque.
Um, Van is gonna just kind of look at the window slightly to see if anyone like at this any signs of lights or anything like that.
There are a couple lights from like the left hand, like our left hand side. You can see that there. It looks like there's like a little candle flickering on the inside for a bit.
Banner takes a look at herself in the soaking rain before looking at the house again. looks at herself, looks at the house, and she goes up to the door.
Alright. So, well, as far as you can see, the door is, it does have some nice engravings on the door itself. There is some stained glass onto it as well. Again, keeping up with that green theme, because for some reason, this house is very green.
She hesitates for a few moments. Like, she goes to knock, but she stops. And it takes her a moment or two to actually attempt to knock.
And does she knock?
Yes.
Okay, so as you knock, funny enough, the door just kind of creeps open on its own.
Maybe just stands there and blinks for a moment. Kind of like reaches the hand over to the open door and knocks it again. A little bit harder to make sure it's like, is this good? Is this not good?
The door just kind of sways open a little bit further. That's it.
Okay. Vanier kind of walks in.
So as you walk in, it's fairly dark in like this main foyer area. You're just kind of stuck standing there in the front door, pretty much.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, looking on Ollie's end, Ollie, he has been in his little office upstairs for a little bit. He's been writing some stuff down. And he just thinks to himself for a moment and then decides to get up and wander down the stairs, only to pause because, well, there's Vanier.
Vanier kind of stares and blinks for a moment and kind of looks at the door and kind of goes, it opened on its own.
Ollie just kind of slowly nods and gives a small wave.
Vanier waves back in a confused manner.
He just kind of slowly makes his way back down the stairs for a moment, and then kind of gets a good look at you, up and down. And then you can see him thinking. And then he notices that, well, it's raining pretty good out there.
And she's soaking wet.
Yeah. There's a bit of a puddle.
Yeah. Her arms are probably just on the floor, just sagging in a sense of things.
It's kind of like when you go to take a scarf off after like running in the snow for like a good couple hours, and it's just completely sopping wet, and it just kind of flop.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ollie sees that and is like, oh. And like just the look on his face, he's like, oh, okay. He begins looking around the room, then kind of gives you like a gesture of his finger to be like, wait there, and rushes back up the stairs.
Vanier kind of nods. In that case.
And in the meantime, you got time to look around.
She does so.
You want to do another perception check?
Yeah. Oh, not too good this time around.
Oh! Vanier apparently does not perceive.
She's just confused. She's just standing there, just kind of confused at what she stumbled into.
Oh my gosh. I think at most, for what Vanier can see, all across the room, she can tell that there's a couple of maps that have been framed up on the sides of the wall. There's obviously 2 sets of stairs on each end of the foyer that kind of wrap on like a little bit of a curve going up to the 2nd floor, which is definitely where Ollie went. Otherwise, it's a pretty quiet little place. It's very green.
Yeah.
This man apparently really likes green.
Man, she's kind of confused on what she's just confused. She's a confused girl in the sense of like what she kind of stumbled into in a sense of things. And
yeah.
it's just like, Is this okay? Should I leave? Should I...
Oh no, it's like the awkward feeling where like you're visiting a friend's house and you're just kind of standing there like, okay, I'm just gonna be over here, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. Her mind progress is like, I'm in a stranger's home. I followed the bird, which was really weird. Is it actually okay to be her? I don't know. But yeah, she's just focusing on her thoughts at the moment more than just her surroundings.
Yeah. So as you are doing that, eventually Ollie returns back and he has a towel.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of gestures to kind of hand it forward to her.
Vanier just kind of raises one of her silk scarves up and grabs it. And kind of just starts drawing herself off in a confused manner, you could say. Like, she's doing it in an awkward mannerism of, like, thank you?
Ollie's just kind of like nodding. Like, yeah. And then pauses for a moment, midway of a nod. And then goes, oh! And then he rushes over to one of the rooms on the left. And he returns with a little notepad with a pen.
Vanier kind of blinks for a moment, seeing this.
He goes to scribble inside the little notebook for a good moment. It takes a little bit, but in some fairly good cursive, it reads, apologies, I cannot actually talk.
You're fine.
He kind of smiles and nods.
Sorry. Was kind of lost. Followed an odd bird here.
He writes down, odd bird, you say?
Yeah, I think it was a raven or a crow.
He thinks for a moment and then he begins to write some more in. Oh, a crow! Oh, they always say that those things come with good or bad luck. I can't remember which one.
Vanier just kind of shrugs.
He's also just kind of sitting there intensely thinking to himself for a good minute.
The most interactive conversation between these two. Oh my god.
He thinks for a little bit more, and then you can see his head kind of pop up like, oh. And he goes to kind of poke at your shoulder like, okay, come over here, follow me.
Vanier follows.
Using with like making sure that she has the towel with her as well.
Yeah, no, she's keeping the towel in the sense of things. She's currently like, you could see like she's using the towel to dry up her arms just a bit more because of how soaked they are. So they're like folded in to the towel.
Oh boy, that's gonna take a while to dry out.
Yeah. She just at most she's just drying them out enough to basically so they don't drip everywhere.
Oh, she's trying her best.
Of course, she's in a stranger's home. She doesn't know how he's gonna react for the mess.
Oh, that's true. But yeah, no, Ollie, he leads you into this other room. It looks like a parlor. Again, very Victorian inspired at the very least. It has that kind of style to it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, very green. The windows are all tinted green. There is also a very slight smudge on one of them.
Vanier looks at the smudge.
Do you want to roll a perception
check? Yeah. Fuck it, we're doing this. I'm gonna copy it. 17.
So with a 17, sorry, one moment.
You're fine. You're fine.
There we go. Anyway. But yeah, no, as you get a better look at this little smudge, it kind of resembles roughly like someone's face, but like slightly, like if you press someone's face into a window.
Vanier just kind of blinks for a moment and goes, "Was there an accident here?"
Ollie kind of looks at you a little confused at first.
Vanier points, takes out one of her, arms from the towel and points at the smudge face print on the window.
Oh, he perks up and he begins writing quite quickly. Ah, yes, I had another visitor a while back. He came to visit in a very peculiar way. Somehow managed to smack himself right into my window. But somehow he's okay.
Oh, okay.
He just kind of nods in reply, like, yep.
Sorry, she's not. She's not much of a talker, which is funny.
Which is totally valid because you're in a stranger's house. I mean, of course, you wouldn't be very talkative with like a stranger unless you were incredibly extroverted to the point where social cues and everything did not matter, and you could just heckin' leap for it and be like, heck yes.
Yeah, no, she's just quiet being.
She's just a little quiet bean.
So she's gonna take a look around the room a bit more and sense of things, possibly where Ollie is and seeing what he's doing in a sense of things.
Yeah. Ever since he got into the room, he kind of sat down at like a desk that is very close to the door that you just went through.
Mm-hmm.
He also kind of ushers you to go sit down on one of the couches.
Banner looks at the couch, looks at herself, in the sense that she's probably still soaking wet to a degree, and she looks at Ollie, going, "Is it really okay?"
He pauses and kind of like stares into the void for a moment, and then is like, oh, right. And he kind of rushes up, takes the towel from you, and just kind of lays it down on top of the couch.
Okay, yeah.
And he's just kind of.
I know.
He pats at the couch. Like,
I know.
Okay,
he yeah. I'm just thinking. Will she? Oh my god. She'll sit at the couch, but part of me wants to do with a thing with her in a sense of things.
Hello?
She takes off the scarf.
I mean, if you want.
Yeah, no, you see her kind of before she actually sits down, kind of like pull at her own scarf, and her hand just like disappear as a just normal scarf, kind of just
like flops down.
Yeah, and she just goes.
Ollie has to pause. Like,
Sorry.
He just kind of slowly nods.
These two. Oh my god. This is probably one
He's seen some weird stuff in his past, but he's never seen something like this before, so he's just kind of slowly nodding, like, okay, I sort of see what this is.
This is probably the most awkward conversation these two have ever had in the sense of things.
First impressions,
But she does sit down.
He then just kind of like gets back to his own seat at this desk there. It looks like he was kind of writing something else over here, but he had some business to do upstairs before. Not that Vanier would know, but
yeah.
He begins kind of looking through some of the papers and things on there. He thinks for a moment and goes, he kind of waves it off. I'll do it later. Anyway, he kind of looks back at Vanier and he begins to write in his little notepad.
Mm-hmm.
And in that notepad, he asks Vanier, so how did you get here?
I walked.
walked? For that must be taking you quite a long time.
I think it's been a few days.
You can just see him writing quite intensely because now he's getting a little excited. At least the expression on his face says so.
Yeah.
He writes down, "Oh, are you a bit of an explorer too?"
I think so. I don't know.
Don't know.
I kind of just woke up and walked.
He slowly nods. And then he kind of begins tapping at the notepad with his pen for a moment, trying to think something. He quickly jots down, "So, what's your name?"
I think it's Vanier, though it doesn't sound right.
Vanier.
He
begins tapping again.
I don't think it sounds right, though. It was just something that someone called me when I woke up.
He begins writing a little bit more, and his writing definitely reads out, Vanier. Why does that sound familiar? Maybe I've heard someone else with that name too before.
Don't know.
It's a lovely name, though.
Thank you. Though it doesn't feel quite right.
Not quite right.
Doesn't feel like it's my name. But it's the only thing I've been called.
He kind of pauses and thinks for a little bit. He begins rubbing at his chin. Maybe at his mustache, too. He then begins to write again. Maybe you knew that. Maybe that person knows you, but you don't know them. Sometimes that's the case.
He seemed scared and ran away. Dropped his hat.
Oh, so that hat isn't yours?
I woke up in a bush.
He looks very, very puzzled. He is thinking quite intensely right now. He is rubbing at his mustache. Any possible way to convey that he is thinking. There's a lot of body language held in this one old man.
You just see a question mark kind of float over Vanier's head. Clearly, she's kind of confused.
He begins to write again. It sounds like you got a bit of a mystery on your hands. Scarf, rather.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
He kind of thinks in silence for a bit. It's kind of like when you think really hard and you have to kind of look out a window for a bit.
Yeah.
He's definitely doing that. He's kind of just sitting in his chair thinking for a bit, and then kind of thinks again and goes, "Oh," and begins writing again. Did you need did you want a drink or anything? Coffee, tea, water?
Vanier kind of shrugs. The best she can shrug, in the sense of just her shoulders, because her scarf is on the ground.
Oh.
I don't know.
He nods, like, okay. He writes down, "Well then, I'm going to make myself a cup. You can come along if you want."
Oh, okay. She gets up, and she kind of looks at the scarf on the ground. For a moment, realizing what she kind of did.
Oh. I think he, midway he goes to begin walking forward, but then realizes the scarf too, and then quickly writes on his little notepad. Do you need that, or are you okay?
I mean, it acts as my arms.
He thinks for a minute and then writes down. So you do need it.
Yeah. 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 She is not much of a talker. I apologize.
It's okay. It's just part of her character. She's a good. And then Ollie, despite not being able to even talk, he has so much on his mind.
This girl's not helping by any means.
Oh well, she's learning. It's okay.
Yeah. She is not helping the case of all the things that is on his mind.
He just kind of shrugs and then he kind of waves you on to follow along.
Are we just gonna leave the scarf out on the ground?
I mean, if you want to leave it on the ground.
Okay, Vanier's gonna just leave it on the ground. They're gonna deal with it later, in a sense of things.
She is now armless.
For the moment, yeah, she is completely armless.
But wait until she gets it back. She will then be armed.
Oh my god. But yeah, she follows Ollie.
Alright, so she kind of, Ollie begins kind of leading the way over. There's a sort of like a back door to this parlor, and it kind of goes towards the very back of the building, which pretty much is like his general kitchen area.
Okay.
It's pretty homey, very quaint. Probably about as much as you'd expect from like your grandparents' like stereotypical kitchen, perhaps, but maybe make that like 5 times bigger.
Oh my god.
Listen, he's in a mansion. He has a pretty big kitchen. He
yeah.
Did a big everything.
So she can't help but like say underneath her breath, "This is a very big place."
Do you think Ollie heard that, or should I roll for it?
Do a roll. Do a roll.
Alright, 1 sec.
Let's see if Ollie can hear.
I'd assume that would be perception, I guess?
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy, I guess he doesn't hear it. His old ears cannot handle being able to hear
I would say he did hear something, but you didn't quite catch that.
Oh, like a little murmur. Aww.
Yeah. Because it's not too low.
Oh yeah, like it's probably just enough you can just hear like and he doesn't seem to really mind.
Yep.
But yeah, no, he enters this kitchen and he kind of just begins making himself another pot of coffee.
Okay.
And of course, during all that, I can't help but also say that the rain is going pretty good outside. Probably enough that you could probably hear it against the windows. Which, you know it's heavy when you can hear it against your window.
Yeah.
He just kind of watches it while he's waiting for the hot water to boil and everything.
And you're kind of like, says in a much louder, "This place is so big."
He perks up and begins writing in his notepad again. It certainly is. I don't want to give all credit, but I did have some help in building it.
Are you out here alone?
He nods. Yeah.
And you kind of tilts her head in confusion, in a sense of things. Slightly to that.
He begins writing down. Yeah, no, I have been alone in this place for quite a number of years. I wasn't always alone though.
Really?
Oh yes, I used to have a wife. She's not around anymore though. But it's just me, myself, and I always have some visitors coming every now and again, so that's nice. You can tell that he's writing in a bit more of a... You know how, like, there's a difference between cursive and printing when it comes to writing?
Yeah.
He kind of has resorted to printing just because it's quicker.
Vanier kind of, like, nods in the sense of things. her hat probably jingles a little bit because there is a bell at the end of the
Oh. I'm pretty sure he notices the bell and just kind of he gives a little smile, like like that.
Yeah, Vanier's gonna look around a little bit.
All right, so as you kind of look around again, it's a pretty quaint kitchen. Honestly, there is a bit of you know, like those really fancy plates, like those china plates that have all these different little designs on them.
Yeah.
He has a good set of them that are kind of like lining the whole kitchen. Like just at the very top of the room, like towards the ceiling.
I can just see that.
There's also like a few cabinets of different plates and cutlery. There's some spices in another cupboard. By the looks of it, there's a bit of a glass pane that kind of covers that. It kind of looks like some of the kitchen hasn't really been touched as often as other parts.
Oh?
Like some of them, like more baking kind of related things aren't really being touched as often. You can tell that like some areas it looks like it was cleaned, but doesn't seem like it really gets much interaction as opposed to say closer to the sink where there's maybe a couple plates and dishes inside the sink and maybe like a little cookbook open.
She looks at the cookbook just for the whim of it.
Surprisingly enough, this cookbook actually looks like it's handwritten by Ollie himself, actually. And of course, on the page that it's open towards, it says Imagination Pie.
And your kind of tilts her head slightly to that. She would reach to flip through the pages, but she recognizes she does not have arms at the moment.
Oh no! Ollie is still very much focused on making his coffee, and he seems to be almost done.
She kind of just continues to read the little page about Imagination Pie for a moment.
As you read this page that talks about Imagination Pie, it comes from a whole different place, somewheres in Inkwell that you likely have never heard of before.
That, or she have heard, but she just lost. She doesn't.
Maybe
memory loss.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But any which way, though, it talks about how Imagination Pie, it comes from a very long ways away. It's kind of like towards the border between Inkwell and then towards stuff regarding the real kinds. It's pretty much cooked up between real kind and a Toonkind's perception in a way. It's a little confusing to read, and the instructions on how to make it don't necessarily make any sense.
You just
but you can't help but notice that the drawing at least looks pretty good.
Yeah, you see a few question marks just kind of float over her head for a moment or two.
I think Ollie begins to notice these question marks and then kind of tilts his head back at her, like, huh?
She's just kind of focused on looking at the book, currently.
He kind of looks down at the book and then back up at Vanier and then goes, and just kind of nods. Like, yeah, okay. There's a lot of nodding in this boy.
Yeah.
It's one of the easiest things to convey to other people.
Then you kind of, after trying to take in the, like, just look at the book for a few, she kind of, the question marks kind of disappear as she looks up and looks back at Ollie to see what he's doing. In this moment, he realized he didn't pull out a coffee mug, so he went to, like, one of the cupboards and pulls out this little mug. This is just a basic mug. There's not much to it. Okay.
And he places it down onto the counter, pours himself a cup of coffee, adds whatever he needs into it, which is usually, like, some milk and some sugar.
Yeah, Vanier's just watching. She's not too sure what to do. This is stranger's home.
She's just observing.
Yeah, she's just watching. She's just watching.
He goes to take a sip, but then realizes it's too hot. So you can see him wincing at how hot it was, and backs his head away, and then decides to just hold the cup instead.
Just tilts her head at most. Just slightly.
he kind of catches his attention with Vanier and just kind of gives a little smile, like a sheepish smile, and then goes to write in the notepad with one hand, which doesn't necessarily look like the greatest because it's kind of tricky to write with one hand sometimes.
Yeah.
It writes down, "It's too hot."
Ah. Okay.
He thinks for a bit and then decides to kind of put the mug down onto the counter for now and just kind of waves it off. He writes down, "Maybe I'll just let it cool for a moment before I actually drink that."
Vanier nods. God, the conversation of these two.
Vanier was just like, "I don't know where I am, but I don't know what I want to do."
Yeah, no, exactly, and she doesn't have arms at the moment.
She's armless.
Yeah.
Ollie's just standing here like, "Hi, friend."
Yeah, Vanier's just kind of in a case of, in stranger's home, I'm curious, yes, but don't know how to ask questions properly.
Aww. I'm pretty sure, like, at this point, Ollie can recognize the expression on her face, like, yeah, something's going on here. And he thinks for a bit, and then realizes something that he probably should have said in the first place. He begins writing into his notepad and writes out, "Oh, I am so rude. Introductions. My name is Ollie."
Oh, nice to meet you, Ollie.
He nods back in return. He also writes underneath Ollie, Oliver D. Thomas, which is his full name.
Okay. She gives a nod. Nice to meet you. Like I said earlier, my name, I think it's Vanier. So, again, doesn't quite feel right.
He nods. He begins to think for a bit. He writes down again. "Was it a crow that you said?"
I think so. That or a raven. It's kind of hard to see at times.
Crow or raven? Perhaps I have a book about those birds.
Vanier kind of tilts her head. When I was walking, I saw it, and I don't know, I just felt like following it.
He nods. Okay. He waves you over and takes you to yet another room.
She just follows.
He's a man on a mission. He's definitely got something on his mind. And as he does, he actually reaches you towards the library.
Mm-hmm.
He before anything really happens, he actually does take the time to slowly take a peek into the library as if he's trying to look for something. Like trying to see if the coast is clear.
Is everything okay?
He whips his head over and nods like, yep, I'm fine. And begins to take another peek through the crack of the door before slowly opening it, cautiously.
Vanier just tilts her head.
He kind of waves you on, like, okay, coast is clear.
Are there dangers in this place?
He takes a moment and then begins to write in his notepad again. Yes and no. Not necessarily.
Vanier just has a big question mark over her head.
He continues to write, like, not necessarily the worst of cases. I have definitely dealt with plenty in my day. But there is something very peculiar going on in my library.
Oh?
Don't even know what it is, but apparently it seems to really like me.
What? Is there a description you could give?
He just shrugs.
Vanier just tilts her head. Also,
any which way, he shakes his head like, okay, enough of that. Anyway, and begins to start searching for a specific book, going through all these books, and you can tell that, like, on the shelf at least, it is alphabetized.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take very long to get to the C section.
Yeah, Vanner just stands there because she would help, but the fact that she has no arms currently.
She's just like, here, like, I am ready to help, even though I don't have arms.
Yeah. She kind of made, she's starting to kind of regret the choice of taking off her arms currently.
Oh. Oh, menu. But any which way, he's still searching for this book. He pauses for a moment. He begins tapping his foot. He's looking at the bookcase pretty intensely. He's not entirely sure where to look next.
I'm gonna do a perception.
Yee, go ahead.
12.
12. The 12. I think with the 12, it would be sort of like you feel like you almost find the book that is clearly labeled crow, but then it doesn't. Instead, it says craw, like crawfish.
Yeah, and you kind of blinks for a moment, and you're like, at least it's close. So she continues to look. She knows it's not the right one, but she knows she's in the right area.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're pretty close. Surely you gotta be close.
Yeah. So.
Did you want to try to roll again?
Yeah. Yeah, give me a sec. Oh!
Oh my gosh, okay. It doesn't take you very long. That you just kind of take a little look further down the line, and of course, there you go. You begin seeing books that are titled Crow.
Excuse me?
He looks over and nods.
She kind of, like, due to the fact she doesn't have arms, she kind of, like, gestures with her head in the sense of over here.
He looks over and goes, oh! And wanders over. He begins taking a look through, and he's taking his time kind of trying to decide which book he's to pull out. And then, of course, he manages to find one. And then he pulls that one out and kind of shows the cover towards Vanir.
What's the cover? Like?
Sorry. I had to pull something up.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no, you see this cover, and it definitely has a really fancy looking crow on it. It doesn't seem to have many words on the cover.
Okay. Fairy just kind of looks.
He begins kind of like, you know that thing where, like, sometimes you lick your finger to kind of get to a specific page in a book?
Yeah.
Ollie does that.
Oh my god.
He does that and begins flipping through the pages. He's kind of skimming through the book itself and begins to find a page early on in the book that he flips towards.
Okay.
And the book definitely has a really nice image of a crow, of course.
Vanny kind of goes behind, kind of like looks over his shoulder type of, or looks at by the side of him, just kind of trying to see what he's flipping through.
Yeah.
Want me to roll another perception for that?
I think it should be fine to be able to see from where you're standing.
Okay.
In the book, though, if there's one line that often kind of stands out, it does sound very similar to what Ollie had claimed earlier on. Which is that crows often are known to be universally a bad omen, a crow being a symbol of a curse, but then in some cases, often crows are also known to be sort of messengers of sorts, or perhaps they are meant to be good luck. At least in terms of symbolic means.
Yeah.
And you could tell Ollie is very much reading all of this, and he's just kind of rubbing at his chin.
So I'm curious. Is it bad luck or good luck? With the one I spotted.
He continues to kind of read on, and you can tell on the look on his face, it's sort of like he winces, he kind of wrinkles up his nose a little bit, like, He closes the book and just kind of gives you a playful shrug, like, I don't know.
And you gives a shrug back.
He just kind of shrugs back again, and then just writes down, I'm not sure. This is definitely something worth looking into, though.
What? You sure?
He nods.
Benny tilts her head in a sense of things. She's not used to this by any means. You could kind of just clearly see it. She's just kind of confused. Then again, she's kind of had this kind of stuck look of confusion throughout the whole time she's been here. So it's kind of
she's just trying to take in the sights. She's trying to take a grasp on what's going on.
Yeah.
Ollie does think for another minute and then just kind of writes down, well, you're in luck.
Hmm?
Because I could probably find out for you.
How so?
You can see he kind of does like a silent chuckle, you know? His shoulders kind of they kind of wiggle a little bit when he tries to laugh.
Yeah.
Nothing comes out.
Yeah.
He does that, and he begins writing a little bit more. And writes down, well, I don't want to call myself an expert necessarily, but I do often collect a lot of cursed artifacts. Perhaps we can find out what the origin of all this crow nonsense is all about.
Oh, okay.
He begins to kind of think again, and then goes, writing down, so you said you were walking for a few days?
Mm-hmm.
Few days. ... Do you have a place to stay? Do you know how to get back home?
No.
Do you know anybody nearby? Or
no.
He kind of just looks like, huh, okay. He kind of slowly nods. And he also begins writing up again. Well, once again, you're probably in luck, given that I do in fact have a guest room just upstairs.
You sure?
He nods quite rapidly.
I don't want to be in any trouble.
You just kind of like, you know how you the hand gesture, you're like, oh, stop.
Oh my god.
Stop. He does that and begins to write again. Oh, it's nothing. You're not doing anything wrong. You just got a bit of a journey ahead of you. Sometimes it's nice having other people to do it with.
Oh, okay.
And adventure is kind of my whole thing, so.
Is that why you have a lot of items?
He excitedly nods.
Oh my god. Okay. So, I do want to warn you a bit. Just
He tilts his head.
I, just in case this ever falls up, I want to at least warn you ahead of time, so in case an incident or two happens, you don't freak out the first time, you could say.
He nods. Okay.
I think it's probably best to show you. Though I need my hands.
He kind of perks up like, oh, right. He kind of tells you to stay put and then rushes over to get your scarf.
Yeah.
And then he comes back. It looks like it's still pretty damp, but at least it's not nearly as bad as earlier.
Yeah. So when he puts on her scarf, the scarf actually kind of poofs out into a pair of her own hands.
Oh gosh.
And after kind of like stretching her hands a bit in the sense of clenching and releasing them, she goes for her hat.
Oh?
And she takes off her hat. And some of the hay that was covering part of her face goes along with it. And there's a decent sized hole in it, in her head.
Ollie kind of just has to take a moment. He's just staring at this hole.
I woke up with this.
He slowly nods. You can tell that his eyes are a little wide, but he's still kind of slowly nodding, like, okay. Okay.
Thought I would warn you to make sure you don't fully freak out if an incident happens.
He nods again. Again, like, kind of slow, like, yeah.
You okay?
He writes down, yes, that's fine. There are plenty of mysteries for us to discover, and this is definitely one of them.
Should I put the hat back on? You seem...
He thinks for a moment and then writes down, only if you want to.
Okay. She puts the hat back on.
Oh. Oh, Vinny.
She's not too comfortable with the gaping hole in her head.
Just casually pats Scarecrow gal. Pats her. I pat her. I break the fourth wall and I pat her on the head.
Oh my god. No. But
so he thinks for a moment and then he begins writing again, though. So you can stay in the guest room for time being.
Oh, okay.
No idea if you need days to wander or who knows what, but this place is definitely welcome for guests, of course.
Okay. If you need any help with something, I'd be willing to help out as thank you, cause...
He smiles and nods in reply. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
I just don't want to be rude or a nuisance to you.
He writes down, oh, that's no problem. Honestly, it's kind of nice having company around. It's usually pretty quiet around here. Aside from the weird, mysterious force coming from the library, which we are in.
Yeah.
We should probably get out of here before something happens.
Vanya just kind of tilts her head. She's gonna just go along with Ollie.
He's just sheepishly smiling and trying to usher her out of the room. Like, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
she follows. She follows.
Like, back out into the foyer, back into the hallway. Yep. Just gonna close that door. Just quickly. Yep. Okay. And he just kind of looks relieved now that he's out of the room. It's like, and just kind of pauses, takes a look at the door for a moment.
Is the thing
kind of
in
watching
there?
It and just kind of sighs like, okay.
Mandy kind of looks at him and tilts her head. Is it really that bad?
He kind of shrugs at first and then begins writing down, well, last time I had visitors, there's some weird things going on in that room.
Like what?
Flying books. Apparently a globe tried to hit me, but I never saw that.
In your shrugs.
Very, very peculiar. And then he thinks for a moment and then begins writing again. Well, I can always show you to your guest room in the meantime.
Vanya nods.
And with that, he waves you up to head on upstairs.
Okay, Vanya's just gonna stay close. She does not know this place, like, at all.
Oh, and he totally understands. He takes a moment to pause walking and even writes down. So if you have any questions or concerns, or if you need to know where, say, like the bathroom is located, please do holler. I cannot speak or reply back, but I can definitely hear.
Okay. And she's kind of following Ollie. She does like reach out with one of her scarf arms and just kind of like grabs slightly to one of his sleeves.
Oh, so cute.
So it's kind of awkward.
Over, like,
it's kind of awkward in the sense of things because how big her hands are. So it's kind of like pinching.
Oh, that's right. I forgot how big her hands are.
Yeah, no, her hands are huge.
Her hands are like twice the size of her head.
Yeah, so she's kind of like pinching in the sense of things, his sleeve.
Oh, he definitely kind of looks over his shoulder to be like, okay, yeah.
And she's still good. She's still looking around, and as they're walking, it just she doesn't want to get lost, so she's just kind of like keeping a hold of you, so she doesn't linger off into an area.
I think Ollie will realize that and just kind of gives a soft smile, like, okay, all right, and begins leading you up towards the rest of the stairs, and eventually on the left-hand side of the building, there is indeed a little room that is labeled guest room.
Okay.
And he just kind of lightly gestures at it, like, okay.
Oh, thank you.
He nods back in reply. He seems to be quite happy.
Vanier kind of nervously smiles. She's not used to it in the sense of things.
Oh,
and she nods.
She's just trying her best.
It may take a few days for her to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable. I mean, if you just entered someone else's house and you got welcomed in because there's nowhere else to really go.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, it is very well possible that it's like, well then.
But
this is going to take time to get used to.
Yeah, but she does enter the room.
Hey! And while Vanier, as you enter the room, it doesn't seem to look too out of place. It has about the same kind of layout as everywhere else in the building that you've seen so far. It has a bit of that Victorian aesthetic, different kind of like furniture and all that. It's not a very huge room, but it's big enough to hold like a master bed.
Oh my god.
So like, what is it, queens or king size bed?
So
fairly big.
Big.
Just enough.
Big bed.
Big bed. And the thing to point out too, though, that this room, it has a bit more of a blue kind of theme to it. Unlike a lot of the rooms that you've seen that are very green.
Vanna just takes her time and just looks around, really.
But yeah, the room, there isn't too much in here. There's a very nice dresser. There's that big bed that was already mentioned.
Yeah.
It looks like there's a bit of a light fixture on the ceiling, a bit of a chandelier kind of situation. Not a very big one, but just enough for the room.
Vanna looks back at the doorway.
These big windows too.
Yeah, Vanna looks back at the doorway. Ollie's probably standing there, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, he's just kind of standing there, kind of letting you get familiar with the room at least.
Vanna kind of gives a nod, like a really sheepish nod, and goes, "Thank you again."
He nods and just kind of gives a little thumbs up and begins returning back to another room.
Vanna kind of just stays in the room, innocent to things. She does look out of the window though.
Out of the window, as far as you can tell, you see a lot of jungle.
Yeah.
There's nothing too special about it. It's a nice view at the very least. At least you'll probably get the sun hitting in at some point in the morning. At least that's what you assume. As of right now, it looks a little rainy out. Looks a little sad. A little bit cool colored everywhere, given how the weather is outside.
Vanier's...
I think that's nearly it.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it. That's the FPS.
Okay, I'm gonna stop. And actually, we just hit an hour mark here.
Heck yeah. And thank you for playing.
Nope.
For those listening.
Thank you for listening.